welcome to that very first live chat where tonight we have the privilege to get to gracefully know Sue. So thank you, Sue, for being the very first one to come and to be brave enough to tell your story, to share it with us. It's the spirit of this light chat is really to bring more light into the temple that we are all co-hosting and learning from one another and celebrating our victories as well when we have a victory to celebrate. So you are all very welcome and thank you for being here. It's really helping Sue and I to go through the whole process. So the way it's going to go it's about, I'd say, 20 minutes. My clock is on my right. I'm going to be quite clean and precise. 20 minutes of listening to Sue's story. And I've had the privilege to listen to it already. And I know it's a story really of claiming your power back, through an autoimmune disease and more than that, to be honest. So we'll share this. And then after the questions, we'll open for a Q&A just in case each of you or one of you has a question for Sue. Really, the idea is we are all experts, all of us here. We've gone through life. A few decades, actually. We've all had our heart broken. We've all had breaking. I broke a few hearts too, I have to say, I admit it. And we are growing up and the journey is not over and we still have to refine, but we have so much to learn from each other. So thank you, Sue, for being here. I'm going to give you the floor. And if you just want to gently introduce yourself, other than your name, possibly what you do today, and then after that, we can actually go back and reverse to start the journey of how you came to be where you are today, ultimately. So go on, feel free to start whenever.
Okay, thank you, Florence, for inviting me on anyway. I think it's quite a privilege that you've invited me. Thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to share my story really in the way to inspire other people to know that healing, that you can actually heal yourself. And because I healed myself from a rare autoimmune condition, sarcoidosis, which most people have never even heard of, and I've never met another person in person that's ever had it. So that was how that is basically my story. And what I do now is I'm an holistic therapist, and I help other people along that journey that I already took into healing themselves.
Good. So how critical was your autoimmune disease ultimately? When did it start? How long it stayed with you, and how bad was it really?
So it started when I was 31. I had a young family and I started to have a problem with my eye. But I sort of thought, oh, well, I wear contact lenses, I've overworn them, my eye's just a little bit sore. And to cut a really long story short, it turned out that I had uveitis, which is also a rare eye condition. And at one point, I lost 80% of my vision, which at 31 is terrifying when you've got a young family. And my husband also worked away. So that was really, really difficult time. And because the eye condition was never getting any better, then they knew that it was the symptom of an autoimmune condition, but at that time they didn't know which one.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take for them to figure out what was going on with you, and what kind of ordeal were you?
So really in the beginning, so they thought when I first had the eye problem, they thought that it was some sort of allergy. But then I started to lose my sight like rapidly from week to week. I was having to go to the hospital, and really it was I think by luck, by chance, by luck. The person at the hospital that was treating me was actually off on sick or holiday, and I actually saw a different consultant who took one look, and she was an Egyptian lady, and she knew that it was the uveitis. So straight away I had to start a different type of therapy. And this eye problem never seemed to be getting any better. So then I had to go on immune suppressants and steroids. It started off with steroids, but even on a really, really high dose of steroid, it was never really making the eye better. And as I was going along, as the autoimmune was progressing, it affected my skin, my lungs, my eyes, and my lymph nodes. And as it was progressing, I was never really getting any better. And I just kept increasing medication all the time. Never really went into remission. And this went on for 10 years. And
That's what
then,
I wanted you to say. 10
yeah,
years, a long, long
10
time.
years without I didn't have a diagnosis. I just knew I had an autoimmune condition. And it was only really when the lymph nodes came up, and that's when they actually thought I had lymphoma. So when they thought I had lymphoma, and they rapidly came to that conclusion, we think it's lymphoma. But I used to work in the hospital in the hematology department, so I thought that myself. My lymph nodes had all come up, had a big lump in my neck, they were in my groin. It was really painful, my armpits. And then I had a biopsy because they thought I had lymphoma. I literally went to see an ear, nose, and throat specialist. And that day, he said, I want you to have a scan and I want you to come for a biopsy. So that was on the Friday. And on the Monday, I was in hospital for the biopsy, which then it turned out that it was sarcoidosis. And that's when I knew what the autoimmune was after all that time. Still on all the medication.
Could you explain what sarcoidosis is exactly? What are the symptoms? Or, yeah, what are the characteristics and where does it come from? Do you have any ideas now that do you know any better about it?
Well, the thing is, like with a lot of autoimmune conditions, they don't really know what causes it. So it can be many things, and it can be a mutation if other people in your family have autoimmune. Like on my dad's side, it was diabetes. On my mum's side, arthritis. So then you are more predisposed to an autoimmune condition, and then basically that's it. So sarcoidosis, depending on how you have it, I had it in the most chronic form. So it was affected my skin, where I'd have rashes. First of all, it was the eyes, then it was the skin, had these rashes over my body, which nobody knew what they were. And then it affected my lymph nodes and my lungs. So really, all these things had been building up over quite some time. And when I was getting breathless, I was thinking, I'm so breathless. But I was actually quite fit at the time. But I felt really unfit, like just walking the dog, so I was out of breath. But it turned out that not only was the sarcoidosis, which causes all this inflammation in the body, not only was that in the lungs, but all the lymph node in my chest cavity, they were all inflamed. So it was all pushing on the lungs as well.
Must have been very hard to actually breathe or to move. You said you were quite fit, but any pressure, any ill health on the lungs is something that's quite taxing for the body. How did you keep sane ultimately? Did you have a good network around you? Do you have a good support?
Well, to be honest, it was only if I exerted myself where I felt like
Okay.
breathless. I just carried on with my life as normal and just thought, oh, I feel a bit out of breath. Do you know, it wasn't like a big deal to me. Do you know, I just thought, oh, I just feel out of breath. But around me originally, well, I know I had my husband at the time, but he worked away. So most of the time, I kind of just got on with it. And I was living in Spain. I'd moved to Spain, which did
Okay.
actually help my health quite a lot. I moved to Spain when I was 39, and it was moving to Spain that changed a lot of things, because once I was in Spain, the weather was so much better for me as well.
Mm,
So, and what I've found out now is a lot of the time people with autoimmune conditions, they have low vitamin D. So
yeah.
I think being in the sun, that really helped as well.
Okay. Yeah. And was the medical support better in Spain, or what made Spain, other than the weather, being a better place for you?
Well, really, it was more that I met a lot of spiritual people and I met a lot of
Okay.
healers. That it was kind of like magical in a way, because once I decided, when I had that diagnosis, when they thought I had cancer, that's when I decided I need to take my power back and make a change. And because I was living in Spain and I didn't really have a job, I mean, I did my therapies, but I didn't have a full-time job or anything. I could devote my life to healing. And I just decided I needed to take my power back. And really, I was guided by spirit in that way, that I just kept having this feeling that I just knew spirit was telling me, this medication, the side, I missed that bit out, the side effect of that medication was cancer. And I just could not believe it. I'd always believed that medication was there to cure you. I didn't actually ever, it never gave me a thought. I just thought, oh, this will cure me. But it didn't. It was to help the symptoms. So when I discovered that the side effect was actually cancer, that's when I thought enough's enough. And basically, then spirit was talking to me more, and basically kind of guiding me to come off
Mm-hmm.
all that medication. And luckily for me, I started thinking I need some guidance and some help to help me, and I just met loads of healers basically,
Yeah.
which
So
was
right
fantastic.
place, right time, right
Yeah,
place, and
yeah,
find your support.
yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember how it started? Were you spiritually aware before moving to Spain? Were you how? Because it's another field. I mean, you go from the allopathic medicine, where you are being medicated and just told you take that dosage and that is it, to
Yeah.
saying, being at a pathway, a crossroad, and say, no, enough of that. I want something else. So yes, I heard you trust spirit, but how did you? Was there any support there that brought you to, or was it just you and spirit? You know what I mean? Like, how was it? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I've always been spiritually aware since I was a child, but because nobody else in my family was spiritual, um, I didn't really kind of like express it so much, but I always had this knowing. I always had a knowing. And then what took me down the holistic route when I got diagnosed at 31, I was really ill for 3 years. And then when I started to get better, is then that's what took me down the holistic route, because I just kept thinking there has to be another way. So I started doing reflexology and things like that. And I did Reiki. And Reiki was one of the things that I was using, so that when I got attuned to Reiki, that heightened my own spiritual awareness. So I already did Reiki. So when I moved to Spain, I then met other healers. So I was already spiritually aware.
Okay.
And I already tuned to spirit myself, and I was just fortunate enough that when I went, I had a lot of other people around me that were healers, mediums, mystics, and I could just actually freely be myself.
Yeah, yeah. And did you, here you are moving in a different circle and moving to another frequency, uh, being being offered a different possibility. And what did you do with the medication? Did you radically stop it? Did you actually wean yourself out of it? How did you what did you do ultimately, and to,
Well,
to to feel that you were still safe, because that's the big issue behind all that. We still need to feel safe and secure in our choices. So
well,
what
with
happened?
immunosuppressants and steroids, you can't just suddenly stop that medication. As drastic as it sounds, you can actually die from suddenly stopping to take the medication.
Yeah.
So Spirit started to tell me that I needed to stop taking that medication. And I was taking 12 immune suppressants a day. I was on a really, really high dose. And basically, Spirit would just tell me the number. So it was 12, and then they said 10. So when I would go to the cupboard to get my medication, the number 10 was given to me. 2 weeks later, the number 8, and then 6. And then they were leaving it longer. It was, and I just totally trusted and felt safe in it. That I knew Spirit was guiding me, and I gradually reduced the medication down. And on the last tiny bit, I stayed on that last tiny bit for a month until I stopped. So it took me a few months to come off the medication, but every time I took less and less, I felt more and more empowered, especially when I was ringing up the specialists and saying, take me off your list. And
So,
I rang up the rheumatologist and I said, oh, I'd like to cancel my appointment. And they said, okay, when would you like to make another one? I said, never. And she was like, well, you can't just suddenly stop coming. And I felt so good saying it. I said, if I come to your appointment, I'm telling my body I'm in illness, and I'm telling my body I'm in wellness. So I don't want to come to your appointment, but thank you. And then they were like, then my doctor rang me, freaking out. You just stop taking your medication, and you could be really, really ill, because apparently I'm supposed to be on it for the rest of my life. So just to let everybody know, I've not taken any medication for 9 years, and I've never had a flare. Well, I had one slight flare up about 6 years ago. And that was it. And I did some other therapies and stuff. And since then, I'm never ill. Very rarely. But I don't have any symptoms of the autoimmune.
And did you have, by any chance, did you go through some creative process in parallel to all that, to actually help you to release the because I mean 10 years is a long time. So did you do anything else in parallel to help you to let go and to close that chapter, I feel like
So
saying.
when I started to work deeper on myself, going on a deeper level, I'd actually sat and I realized about mind-body connection. It was almost like I was guided to it. So I started to realize all the times when I'd been ill or there was a problem, and I started to realize that every time I had a flare up, it was when something was going on, especially with my ex-husband. Notice the word ex. So when there was things going on, it was affecting my body. And I started to realize that in the past, like when I was in an abusive relationship, I had this lump in my throat and I literally couldn't swallow. And that was because I could never speak my emotions or how I felt, because he was aggressive and violent, and it shrunk me smaller and smaller. And all the times I thought about the things that were going on in my body, I realized about the mind-body connection. And that's when I started doing other healing. And that's what I do now with my clients. I work on the mind-body connection, because when we store emotion in our body from hurt, past traumas, and we store that in our body, it causes imbalances in the body and causes disease.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you during our first conversation where you were talking about your eyesight, and you were talking later about the mind-body connection, and you said at the end of the day, there's something I did not want to see,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah. So that's
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about here. All
yeah.
right,
It's
yeah,
like I
yeah.
didn't things that was going on in my marriage at the time that I didn't want to see. So my eyes stopped me from seeing it.
Yeah.
Things that I didn't want to feel, in it was affecting me in my chest. You know, I didn't want to feel certain things. That was affecting me. My emotional body, the lymph wasn't flowing because I couldn't be me. I was being suppressed all the time. So my emotions weren't allowed to be expressed and felt. So the lymph nodes get clogged with all that emotion that's just not flowing through the body.
So when did Sue meet herself? When did Sue become Sue ultimately, with a flowy lymph and a good eyesight and a healthy body? When did that happen and how?
Well, that happened like pretty soon after I started doing all the healing. It didn't take long.
Okay.
I just stopped taking the medication. I started having lots of healing with other people, doing healing on myself, connecting into my own body, realizing where emotions were stored in my body, having healing to get rid of it. And quite quickly, I actually did heal quite quickly. So yeah, it didn't take a long time, yet 10 years of medication never made me any better. 1 year of healing, spiritual healing in the sunshine, with like-minded people healed.
Right. Yeah. Yes. That's pretty good. And and now you're still on a journey because there's one word that you said you was my I took my power back, and
Yes.
that I know for you that's an important one. So can you actually transition from the moment you started taking the power back, you hinted to where you are today? Because I think taking our power back as women, it's a lifetime journey. So so we know when you started it, how it has evolved, and where are you at the moment with your
Yeah, well, I think
flame?
like, yeah, we all go on like a healing journey, don't we? And different things happen in our life and evolve. And I knew I had to get out of that marriage, so I left that marriage. And then I'd met somebody else, and I had a lovely 3 year relationship with that person where I learned how I could be myself and be fun and all the different sides of me, where I sort of like found myself. But then I came back to England 3 years ago, and that relationship ended, and I realized that really in my whole life I've never been single. And it wasn't that my relationships have all been long term. It's not like I went from one to an eight. It was like they've all been long term. So it's like sometimes I've stayed in relationships way too long, and but where I am now, I'm single, and that's been the best thing for me. And I've totally trusted in spirit that this time on my own, for me to be me, for me to learn to do things myself that I know, it's a journey. I know that in the past I've come to do things and I've just thought, oh, I'll just ask a partner to do that. I don't know how to do it. And I'll just ask them to do that. And basically, doing it yourself and achieving things on your own, and just really stepping into your full feminine power and learning to love every aspect of yourself. Because as we go into our 50s, I've noticed it with lots and lots of women, start to love yourself less, because it's our bodies change, our looks change. And women, I've noticed it with loads of people, and they say, oh, my body's changed, oh, don't look attractive, and this and this. But really, when we start stepping even more into our power and realizing that, we've become wiser. We've got a story to tell, we've got a life, we've got all these things that we've achieved, in our lives. If we step into our own power, it's not never ending, is it?
Yeah, it resonates deeply with me because of my scar, obviously, and I really feel that I'm carrying Freya and the whole Viking who are so proud of their scars, and who don't see them as ugly but as just a testimony of being a survivor, and to have gone through battles and so forth. So yeah, you're right. It's all about. I mean, as I said, I started this like we all had a heart broken and broke a few. So yeah, we've all got a few bruises and bumps on the way. So you're right. We still are beautiful in our different ways. Yeah, therefore. Right, really cool. Listen, a quick one, and because I realize we're just a little bit out of time, and I'd love to see. Somehow, I'm pretty sure Jude has a question because she's magnificent with question, that lady. But before I do that, I'm going to ask you a fun one. If you could have any superpower, just for one day, don't be too greedy, okay? But but it could be only mildly inconvenient to other, okay? So just one day, no greed and not too mean, okay? What would it be and how would you use it? So imagine yourself with a superpower for one day and you can't burn anybody's eye. You just can be kind. What would it be?
Do you know what? I actually would give people the sight to be able to see the invisible connections to everybody. And that if you just saw that even for one day, how much we're all connected from our heart, from everything, there's no way there would be a war. There's no way there'd be hatred. There would just be this massive connection of love. And that would be my superpower.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful. Brilliant, brilliant. So I'm just going to briefly open the floor to whoever. So just unmute yourself, and if anyone has a question, yeah, counting. And if nobody has, Jude. Jude in.
Well, I haven't really got a question. It's like, it's very cute of you to say that I always come up with questions because I'm a bit of a sticky beak. Just really lovely to share, Sue, and listen to your story. And I just, yeah, honoring your superpower, that this thing of community connection really is magical. The way that we all interweave. I was talking to Annabelle actually earlier, who you might not know, she's this other beautiful French woman who's just exhibited in Venice and London with her artwork, who has just in a month left her corporate job behind in London, and just all this little interwovenness, this magic that we're creating, and that Florence has introduced tonight, and Alexandra and Kate, all this, yeah, I just honoring the stories that we're telling each other. So thank you, really. And I think that 20 minutes, I remember many years ago, I was pretending to be a nurse for a summer on Skiros in a writer's lab. All I had to do was put marigolds, really. But I remember the most potent time that we did a session was listening without interruption for 20 minutes. Yeah, listening to each other, and there was just letting it unfold. So yeah, it's very powerful. Thank you
for listening.
Well, I was laughing, Sue, because when you were saying about the connection to all of us, and I was laughing because I remember when I met you and I kept calling you something like Karen, and I annoyed the hell out of you, but I couldn't help it because I just knew you as Karen. I realised that we had a past life together somewhere at some time. That,
I can't remember. I don't think it was Karen. I think it was something else you kept calling me.
It was definitely something else. And Sue used to say, "Will you stop calling me that name? It's not my name." And every time I saw her, I called her the same name. It was just natural to call her whatever I called her at the time. That's gone now, But when we first met, that connection for me was really strong. That I obviously our souls knew each other, but possibly the physical body didn't, so the connection was already made, and we did go on to do some amazing things in Spain.
We did,
from healing and trance, and and your story reminded me of Lisa, when we helped Lisa, a friend of ours that got lymphoma, cancer, and she had 4 young children, and it was a really emotional time, and we all pulled together doing healings for her. And she pulled through, and today she's still here, and she's still grateful, thankful. Every time I see her, we have tears, because of everybody that pulled together in Spain, that were all healers, that said, we can help, we can do this. And she believed, so I can see, your story, you passed it on to others. So I'm really grateful because, you've helped me, and we, you know, we've learned from each other, and I love that. I really
Yeah.
do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sue, I might ask you just a very last question. What are the modalities, the processes you use today with your clients who comes for healing? What do you work with? And then I'm just saying that because in the recording tomorrow, I will be putting your link for whoever wants to get in touch with you. They'll be posted in a Facebook group under the recording.
Yeah, so my healing modalities, I use reflexology, Reiki, hypnotherapy, and belief coding. But what I tend to do is as well mix therapies together. So I work with my client at where they're at and what they need. So a lot of people, if they have belief coding, which is to me is brilliant, changing all the beliefs on a deep level. But then they'll have sessions of Reiki. So it's not just Reiki, it's, you know, all the balancing of everything, the energy field, using sound, vibration, all sorts of things, whatever each individual person needs, really.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okie doke. Well, I think we've passed the time, but it was a great time. I thank you, Sue, for coming. I thank you, Jude, Kate, Alexandra, and Janet for being alive, not alive, but live with me, alive as well. But and I have next month. I won't say it, I won't divulge yet who and what, but I'm very blessed to have another couple of volunteers. So hopefully the journey is going to keep going for a little bit longer. So wishing you a lovely, lovely evening, and I shall see you all next week. No, Friday in the Temple of Light.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Sue, and
Thank
love to
you.
you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.